Hey everybody, welcome to Movie Chatter. We have a very special Halloween themed episode for you tonight, and we are going to be covering a classic movie starring classic monsters and a classic comedy duo. But first, Lou, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really, really well.
Yeah?
I'm excited for tonight.
All right.
This should be a good discussion.
Now I know you hadn't caught the movie yet, but you watched it now, right? So we're good.
Oh, I'm all caught. I've seen the whole movie.
Okay. Yep. And that movie is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I'm Eric, by the way. And Robin, this one is your fault. How are you doing today?
I am so excited. You have no idea.
All right. We're about to find out. We're about to get an idea.
Yeah.
And I'm on vacation.
You're on
This is
vacation?
even better. I am.
Where are you vacationing
See
from?
the creek behind me. Well, I'm
the
in this
stream.
creek.
Apparently.
behind me.
Yeah.
The stream.
And for,
Yeah.
8:45 at night in October on the East Coast, where it apparently is not at all dark outside and looks pretty pleasant. That's, yeah, I'm liking that.
Hey, well, Lou's on the space station.
The space station, yes, Babylon 5. It's actually just outside of it. They kicked him out. They spaced him.
It's the ISS.
They kicked him out.
This is the ISS.
You've been spaced.
Nice.
I know. Isn't that awesome?
You spaced one too many people yourself, and now it's
my favorite thing to do.
retribution. Yeah. Speaking of MMOs, I have a whole discussion we could have, but we're not going to because this is movie chatter, not gaming chatter. And we're going to discuss Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Now, I know...
Can we discuss the title first?
We can discuss the title before anything else. I know that Robin and her husband Tim from our Random Chatter and Force Chatter shows are very much classic monster fans, and I am not. Lou, are you?
I've seen some of them. I probably haven't seen them in probably 30 years, but I've seen some of them. Yep.
All right. So this was our compromise. We said, Lou and I said, okay, pick the best one. Pick one that really stands out if we're going to have to sit through a really old movie. And I had in the back of my mind, maybe she'll pick that Abbott and Costello one because I could probably handle that because I like Abbott and Costello. And I still think the Who's on First thing is one of the best comedy sketches of all time. And that's what she picked. And we're like, well, if we watch that one, then you have to watch something we don't want, you don't want to watch. And so we kind of... We got extra points out of that one, I think, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the movie. And you know what? We're going to spoil it because we know you guys haven't seen it, number one. Number two, came out in 1948. If you haven't seen by now, you don't get to complain about spoilers. Just saying. It is not available to stream anywhere, but you can buy it on iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, Vudu, apparently maybe YouTube. And a couple of other places that sell digital video. And I think Amazon had for like $8.99, so it's pretty cheap. And I think it's worth it. But we are going to spoil it. And don't worry about it, because it's not the kind of movie where spoilers are going to matter, really. I mean, it's a comedy slapstick sort of thing. So, don't sweat the spoilers.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a twist at the end.
Are you talking about the final scene?
I wouldn't
call it a twist. I would call it
It's a all right.
cliffhanger.
It's a teaser. It's a teaser.
Yeah, for what apparently is a sequel that I didn't know existed. 100 years later. But Lou, let's talk about the title: Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Yep. There are a few problems with this.
Frankenstein didn't really have a big role in the movie, though. I mean, it's like,
here we go.
Where was the rest of his gang there? I mean, it was Frankie and it was Dracula,
the Count.
and the Wolfie.
Frankenstein was almost more of a prop in this movie.
Well, why didn't they get top billing in the
title?
Right.
I mean. Abbott and Costello Meet Dracula would have been more appropriate. They met Dracula more often than they met Frankenstein. And also, it wasn't even Abbott and Costello as themselves. They had character names.
Right.
So Abbott and Costello didn't meet Frankenstein. These two characters did.
Chicken Wilbur, yeah.
So Chicken Wilbur. So here's the thing. First of all, they met Frankenstein because this was Frankenstein's next coming out, right? And Dracula wasn't necessarily Dracula. He was, right?
You're asking questions without finishing the question.
He
wasn't Dracula. He
was the recreator of the monster.
So it was Dracula's monster then. And it wasn't Frankenstein. It was the monster. They didn't even meet Dr. Frankenstein.
They barely met the monster, though. Like people, it's kind of a known thing. The monster's name isn't Frankenstein. Frankenstein is a scientist.
Right.
Yeah.
But even if you mistakenly call him Frankenstein, he was a prop in the movie. He didn't do much, the monster. And it was more about the Dracula monster and the Wolfman monster, whom they did meet several times.
Right.
They barely met Frankenstein's monster.
Hold on. First of all, he's the creature.
Okay, we'll call him the creature.
Get that right. Second,
I told you guys before a week ago this was going to be a fun show. Told you.
He's the
We're just
creature.
beginning.
Now, second of all, remember, they had to use Dr. Frankenstein's diary in order to reanimate the creature.
They being not Abbott and Costello.
Essence,
right.
So Dracula and what's her name? I'll get it. But they were using Dr. Frankenstein's notes and diaries to reanimate the creature. Therefore, in some way, Abbott and Costello met Frankenstein because they ran into, as you so pointed out, Count Dracula many times, who in this case was actually a de facto.
So two things. Number one, it should have been titled Dracula Meets Frankenstein's Monster. And number two, by that logic, I've met Kevin Bacon several times. Several times.
Hey, look, it's a classic.
It is.
And
it is.
Culturally, historically, it's everything all rolled up into one.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
It is a significant.
It was fun.
Touchstone. It is actually one of
the comedy between Abbott and Costello was great, like it always is. I mean, they do a good job. Mm-hmm. I love Lou Costello. He does a good job with things. He's got a great first name.
Well,
it is the American Film Institute's one of their 100 funniest American movies.
Okay.
Gotta
listen,
give me that.
I'll say I loved the movie. I just think it's funny that the title is just completely, it's wrong on so many levels. And to be fair, I mean, really the biggest thing to pick apart about the movie is the title. I mean, it was a good movie. Yeah. So the comedy, I feel like the comedy was so well paced throughout the movie. There's hardly any scenes where there's not something funny going on, other than the scenes that Abbott and Costello are not in. And when they're not on screen, at least whoever is on screen, such as Dracula and the woman and whoever else, and they're reanimating the monster, like at least the pacing of the storytelling there was okay. So it moved. The whole movie, I thought, was well paced. The comedy beats were good. And I mean, I love Lou Costello. Always have. Though this was the first Abbott and Costello film I've seen. Yeah, what? I've only seen like their little skits and stuff before. I've never seen any of their full-length stuff. Yeah, first one.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, they're constantly riffing on the Who's on First skit. In any movie you see with these guys, there is some small, not extended like the Who's on First skit, but there is these moments where somebody's saying something, he's misinterpreting it, which leads to something else, right? And then back this recursive sort of thing.
I wouldn't say that they bounce back to Who's on First as much as it is Who's on First is, it epitomizes that misunderstanding comedy. And they very much hit on that frequently, which again, I love.
And that was all throughout this movie, basically,
Yes.
And that's a classic comedy trope now. I don't know if they were the first ones to really do it or not, but like some of the best comedy in history of film, history of television, has been when the characters completely misunderstand each other when it should be perfectly clear what's going on.
Let's talk a little bit about the cast, because the cast is standout and it's important, right? And so you have obviously Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. Lon Chaney Jr., right, plays Larry Talbot, who...
Which one?
Is Larry Talbot / the Wolfman.
Yep.
I know none of these people.
Right?
Like, I know their names, but I'm not as old as some of our hosts. For our audio listeners, you can't see I'm pointing to Lou, but I'm not going to say Lou's name because I don't want to make it obvious.
Really?
But I don't know most of these actors at all. Like, I've never seen them in anything. I don't think I've seen any of them in anything.
Bela Lugosi plays Dracula, right? The Count. Glenn Strange plays in this particular iteration, he is credited as the monster. But right, if we're purists, we're talking about the creature. And the women, so Jane Rudolph plays Joan Redmond, who is the insurance investigator.
Okay.
Right? And Lenore Albert plays Sandra Mornay. So if you watch TCM, right, or any classic movies, you know these women.
I don't even know their names.
They're
See, and I'll side with Eric because the only one I know of this cast is Bela Lugosi.
Really?
Well, who am I thinking of? Boris Karloff?
Boris Karloff.
Okay.
Yes.
See? But I only know him as the Grinch.
Right, but he does classic monster movies too, though, right? Doesn't he usually do the monster?
I don't watch.
He usually does I'm gonna check it before I get it wrong.
Okay.
Because the students in my film class will laugh at me if I get
Ladies and
this
gentlemen,
wrong.
while she's looking that up, I just wanted to point out, Lou and I discovered before the recording here that she's actually prepared a lecture, like an actual written lecture with notes and everything for the show tonight. Except apparently, she's been practicing the lecture in her film studies class for a long time now. And it's all culminating in this episode of Movie Chatter.
Movie Chatter. So yes, Boris Karloff usually plays the monster.
Wait, the monster or the creature?
But he is credited as playing the monster, Frankenstein's monster. But in Mary Shelley's book, and in my favorite director, I'm sure you can fill in the blank here, Kenneth Branagh's version of Frankenstein, he is referred to as the creature.
I always thought he was referred to as the monster or Frankenstein's monster, but okay.
It depends on which sort of thing you're
Kenneth
watching.
Branagh did
one.
He's not a very well-known director.
Really?
So that's why I probably didn't hear about it. Yeah.
He's not really. Honestly, I'm going to get you a date, and then we're going to
My wife might not like that.
No, she means me, Lou.
Oh.
Yeah. And good luck. That's apparently not an easy thing to do. I tried.
So, and one more thing I want to mention. This movie is directed by Charles Barton.
Okay.
And Charles Barton, he was an extremely influential director, grew up. So you're going to know him by, let's see.
Probably
how
not
would you
much.
know him?
Just saying.
Abbott Costello Meet Frankenstein. Gee, I don't know. Zorro?
Nope.
TV version
Wait, Zorro,
of
with Catherine Zeta-Jones
Nothing?
and Antonio Banderas.
No,
Right,
the TV version. You are a horrible human. Petticoat Junction.
I'm totally a Petticoat Junction fan. I'm a
Family
petticoater.
Affair?
Okay, I've got the petticoats in my closet. Family Affair. I remember that one. That was they two little kids and a dad who was a widow and some British butler guy.
Look, he's a really good B movie director.
The directing was good in this.
I happen to really enjoy
and lots of long shots, not a lot of cutting away for different things too often, and which was the style of.
I was actually a little impressed by the special effects for the time of the movie.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
Aside from the whole turning into a bat thing, which looked really,
but they animated it, when they animated it, it flowed like they covered everything they needed to cover. I was surprised that there wasn't like stuff sticking out as the transition happened. I'm like, okay, I mean, it's clearly animated, but like it was okay.
The zapping of the monsters,
that was annoying and slow.
But they worked pretty well though. It was like that was good looking special effects. Right. For what they had to work with back in the time frame where this is shot.
Yeah, I think the Wolfman transition was the only one that kind of felt like, okay, high school project.
Yeah. But that was state of the art back then. When was this filmed?
1948. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it was. I liked the Lon Chaney Wolfman. I liked the way they used that transition. They used it a lot. They used the same shot over and over, but it was a quintessential, I hate that word. It was an iconic, right, moment in film where that transition was sort of slowed down. You could see it happening. I know the bat was a little funky, but
hard to do back then.
It was supposed to be. Yeah. And you could almost see the string, sort of like you could see the wire that was pulling, the candle and right. But these were the effects of the time, and they're fun to sort of go back and see where we came from in order to appreciate where we are a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of expect that sort of thing. I was more interested in like the comedy of it. I didn't see the wires on the candle or the bats because I didn't look.
Oh, I've seen this.
Yeah, the second time I watch it, all of that stuff's going to stand out. But the first time, I know it's there, but I'm not trying to look. So,
right.
And speaking of, real quick, speaking of getting dates. I'm thinking Lou Costello. Wow. What a stud, right?
Right?
Yeah. See, that's what I need to strive for. Put on a few more pounds.
You got to strive for the.
Yeah.
She said you're so round. It's like, hey, yeah.
I grew up in the wrong decade.
She was dating him for his brain.
I was wondering how she decided he was the proper specimen.
Oh, the brains. Remember?
The brain. Yeah. Remember, he was docile. He would.
Yeah.
He was going to take direction no matter what. That was the thing.
True.
Every woman wants that in a man. Come on.
I'll work on it.
Oh, we just went there. So this happened because Universal Studios at the time. This isn't part of the franchise of Universal's classic monsters, but it comes out of that the introduction of these quote unquote monsters. And so Universal started in 1931 with the production of Dracula and Frankenstein. Dracula first in Spanish, and then English, and then Frankenstein, and then they moved on.
Really, it was first in Spanish. That's interesting.
Yeah, and then they moved on in 1932 to The Mummy and a few other things. 1933, The Invisible Man, and then of course in 35 you get The Bride of Frankenstein, The Werewolf of London. So, and then on and on to Dracula's Daughter, Son of Frankenstein. Right, but here's the thing: they built these iconic, really mythopoetic creatures that have carried us through a lot of these movies. And I dare say that many of the horror movies that star varieties of these creatures stand on the shoulders of this studio, and the folks who had their hand on the helm. This was an actual turn in what moviegoers were allowed to see in the 30s.
And for all you Marvel fans out there, this was the original cinematic universe. This was the first, like, blending. Not this
official. It was an official franchise.
Maybe not this particular movie, but it was kind of them crossing over and forming the Avengers later on and all that. Like, yeah. So there are other Abbott and Costello monster movies here. I'm seeing Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy.
Yep.
Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Invisible Man.
Oh, that's a great one.
Go to Mars.
Now, The Invisible Man isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily depicted as a monster movie. The Invisible Man is truly, it's sort of like a gangster procedural. Just happens to be that this individual is affected by the serum that turns him
Abbott
invisible.
And Costello Meet the Killer Boris Karloff. Abbott and Costello Meet Jerry Seinfeld. No, for real. 1994.
I have not seen that.
An important documentary done by a great fan of Abbott and Costello, Jerry Seinfeld. Could be interesting. Meet the Keystone Cops, Meet the Monsters. So, okay. So that is a documentary from 2000 about Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I should have watched that.
If you look back, if you go into the Universal Classic Monsters Wikipedia or even IMDb, and you sort of look down through this series of dozens and dozens
looking at it now,
of
and
movies.
They've got 31 movies in the classic collection of Universal Classic Monsters.
Yeah, and that is sort of the cornerstone of where now we see, right, these super or other natural sorts of creatures emerge. That studio stepped out onto the ledge. They made it happen. I mean, they did Phantom of the Opera in 1943, right? So
now, has anyone else ever done this kind of blending of comedy and horror together? I mean, there's been other horror movies with comic elements in it, but this is kind of unique that we had this comedy duo that's known for comedy doing this to be a comedic movie with horror elements to it.
Well, I want to shy away from horror a little bit because they're called monster movies for a reason. The monsters or the creatures are the focus, right? They do not have what we would consider horror elements.
I think they would have what at the time would have.
It's not like today's horror, right?
Yeah, I would feel like at the time, some of those would have been considered scary and would have had the effect on the audience that horror movies today have on today's audiences. So while I don't think it was classified as horror as a genre back then, as you said, they were called, quote, monster movies. You still had the whole trying to scare the audience and trying to do that adrenaline roller coaster throughout the film. So it kind of feels like it was their version of horror movies. Maybe.
All right.
I mean, that's my argument.
Maybe.
Anyway.
We have a lot more sensational gore, I guess, to pick up on what Lou was saying, that did not exist in
and we've gotten away from like spookiness and creepiness. Instead, it's all like traumatizing. Like even what's not gory is still traumatizing. Like it's all about torture.
Well, like for example, I mean, Frankenstein, 1931, does show this is a drama, horror, and sci-fi.
Hmm.
Right. Right. All right. We'll go
Okay.
there. Um,
So, Lou, you and I just saw this for the first time. And obviously, we know Robin's thoughts on it. She loves it, has loved it for a long time. And Tim, on Random Chatter this past weekend, said that, I mean, I get the impression that you guys typically watch it multiple times a year around this
sir.
time. Not just like a
Yes, sir.
single viewing, but at least a couple.
It's probably good for Easter and good for Christmas.
I can see that. Yeah. So, Lou, what did you think about this? Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend
I
it?
did. I did. I think if you haven't seen it, I think you should. I mean, like Robin says, it's the classic monsters,
Yeah.
and that's something that if you're a student of film, or if you want to just have an appreciation of older film like this, I think it's good to see, and it's got great comedy. I mean, Abbott Costello are fantastic, no matter what age we see them at. I mean, they are a good comedy duo. It's not comedy like we see today, which sadly I think we've lost some of that. But I mean, it's good comedy.
And it's funny too because it holds up so well. A lot of times comedy doesn't hold up that well. If you look back at even as recently as the 80s, some things from the 90s, it's so culturally based that as culture moves on, the comedy doesn't always. But this is very much
I think that,
about just the two people and their interactions. And I think that makes it lasting.
I mean, some of the comedy got a little bit dragged out. I think they probably could have made it a little bit cleaner where they cut here and there. Like, how many times did he tell him to untie the boat? Like 6 times. I'm like, okay, I get it. I mean, untie the boat, untie the boat, untie the boat, untie the boat.
oh no,
Like,
that was brilliant.
But back then, like the audience is still laughing. So in order for them to catch the next joke, you have to let the laughter calm down before you can
Say
move
it
on,
again,
But yeah, you're right. By
right.
today's filmmaking standards, the editing would need a lot of work. But I don't think it hurt it. Like I feel like there was less of me wanting things to move on than I expected there to be. The shots are always longer. The dramatic pauses are more dramatic and more pausey. Pausey? It is now.
Yeah, I think it is.
It's a word now.
But I think it almost felt like it was a play done for a camera.
But a lot of movies back then were exactly that.
But right, but I think, and that's why it felt so slow in some parts. It wasn't, it wasn't that they were just bad at filmmaking. It was just that's what they were going for. That was the way they did it.
Yeah, and if you look back at, like, I haven't seen a lot of movies from that era other than maybe some classic Christmas films and White Christmas and things like that. And a lot of times you'd have a set and you'd stay on that set for 20 minutes of film, and then you'd move on to another set and you'd stay on that set for a while, and then you'd move on to another set. Like, things weren't as dynamic, both in the cuts and in the locations, the environment. It's just a different style of storytelling because it was a different production. It was a different type of production,
It came out of the studio system, absolutely, right? I have to say, 89% Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
Which makes it better than most of the Marvel films
Oh.
and some of the Star Wars films.
85% with the audience score. And I think it's because it's safe, right? It's safe. You can laugh. These are well-known characters, right? They're cultural touchstones. I agree with you. I will watch anything with Abbott and Costello in it. In fact, we own the Abbott and Costello whole box set. So every movie they've ever made. And I will watch it. I love Hold That Ghost. There's just so much. There's so much good stuff in the Abbott and Costello collection. Some of it a little slower than others, but you can't watch it all. You can't binge it, right? but because otherwise it gets a little old. But periodically on those rainy Saturday afternoons, you all know what I do on a rainy Saturday afternoon, right? You curl up and you take one of those
And you watch
DVDs
Cannibal
out,
the Musical.
right?
Another
God.
great black and white movie. Well, part of it was black and white.
Why?
Well, because
Why?
they wanted to
Why
show
can't
like
we-
the passage of
can't we
time. Like they
bleep
wanted
that
the black
out?
and white part to. Oh, that's not what you're asking.
Can't we just bleep that
No.
out? Can we just
No.
bleep it out when he says
The
that?
movie or my mention of it?
Can anybody, audience, if you can tell me how to bleep it out every
the
time
funny thing
Eric
is,
says that.
the responses we've got from the audience members who've seen it, they've liked the movie. They've liked Cannibal. Wait till we get to Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
Oh my God.
By the way, Lou, I'm going to visit
So-
Tim and Robin in December. And so that would be the
Yeah,
perfect
I
time to
heard.
do a
Yes.
watch along. Because only one of us would have to be remote and the rest of us would be
With you
present.
guys up there, yeah, that'd be great. You guys can do it all together.
Yeah, and you'll be on
that'd awesome.
you'll
Let me
be
know how it
there
goes.
on the call with us watching
I might have
and
to
chiming
work
in
or
every few
something,
minutes about what you
or-
see on the screen so we know you're actually watching.
or do my hair.
He's doing his hair. I was just going to say that, Lou.
The cool thing
Darn
about
it.
that is his hair's not on his head, so he can be like the hair can be washing in another room and he could be sitting there watching the movie. Ha
There
ha
you go.
ha. Oh, you thought you had an excuse that was going to
Ah.
work there and you didn't. Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh my God.
Hmm.
So here's the deal,
Mhm.
right? A lot of people would look at these and say they're old. I look at them and say, these are touching aspects of the culture that I wasn't around to experience. And I'm really glad that these two heroes and giants of the industry, even though they died, poor and penniless,
Well, don't tell me that. Now I'm sad.
made some really good, made some really, really good, solid films.
Yeah. Well, if this is any indication and their comedy sketch routine is any indication, then yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, like for me personally, my take on it is I grew up in a household where I wasn't allowed to watch very much stuff. And when my parents divorced in the mid 80s, I watched everything. There was not a movie that came out in the second half of the 80s, I think, that I didn't see multiple times, most of them. So for me, anything prior to that milestone is old. And the further back you go, like as soon as you hit the 70s, those are old movies to me. So to go all the way back to 1948, there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to watch the movie. Okay. Very, very few exceptions. So this is not my thing. That being said, I thought this was a great movie, and I plan to catch the other Abbott and Costello movies. So for the people out there who are thinking, it's old, I'm not going to like it, I get where you're coming from. I'm one of those people. I really am. And I'm not going to start watching old movies just because this one was good. Okay, it hasn't changed my mind on that stuff at all. But
Why?
Abbott and Costello,
Why?
this worked, and I can see their other films working, and I'll watch these. And I would recommend this one. I'm still not going to like really old movies, Robin. I'm sorry.
I
But this one
wanted
is an
to
exception.
like
This one's
really
good.
old
There's always an
movies.
exception to every rule, right?
I'm glad I
You picked a good one.
for you then.
You picked a good. I mean, you do still have to watch Kung Pao, but I mean, you picked a good one. Yeah. I would almost say you might almost have earned yourself another musical.
no,
Almost.
no.
But Lou and I get to pick
I have to
So speaking of that, what are we doing next?
South Park the musical.
sing it in the rain.
No, for real. For real. We need to cover Free Guy.
Free guy.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dune.
Oh, I got a guy.
We could cover
that-
Dune.
Cover
talk
Dune.
about-
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
What was that, Robin?
I'd like to cover Dune, and I got a guy that wants to help us cover Free Guy. I just happen
Yeah?
to know a guy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Looks a little like Lou.
That's just what we
He's
need.
in.
It's just
He's
what we
in.
need.
We always need. I need a stunt double.
Yeah. Well, I know this
So
can be
at
a
some
hazardous
point-
job, Lou.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
So at some point, we should throw another movie into the mix. It's kind of a pseudo old movie, Eric. You might be able to be okay with this.
Mm-hmm.
It was that Woman from the Moon.
I mean, I've
What?
never seen it.
You've never seen, really?
No, didn't MST do a riff on it?
Well, they probably did, but they don't even have to because it makes fun of itself. It's a satire film. I mean, it's was 86, 87, something like that.
Was it that
It was
recent?
That Woman on the Moon.
Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't think it was that. Yeah, 87. I didn't think it was that recent, but it was that way.
Yeah.
It's a spoof on a 1950s science fiction movie.
Okay.
It's got a great cast.
Okay.
Everybody from Arsenio Hall to
Oh, wow.
let's see who else is in here. I think Carrie Fisher's in here too. Yeah, somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
This is starting to ring a bell. I might be
It's
willing
all-
to
it's all-
watch it.
It's all like it's all like sketches in there.
I might be willing to watch that one. Maybe.
I think we'd have fun with it. I
Okay.
think we'd have fun with it. When we have something, when we don't have anything more pressing to do, we can throw that into our
Okay.
mix.
I'm
But we
relying
should
on you to
we should
remember
do
that
Free Guy.
because I never will.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Movie Chatter. So our recommendation unanimously, it sounds like, would be to check out Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Though it's not Abbott and Costello meeting Frankenstein. It's Dracula meeting Frankenstein's monster. And the two characters played by Abbott and Costello meeting Dracula and the Wolfman. It's a little confusing, but
I'm gonna
the
sign.
movie
out.
is not, and you should watch it. So we will not be back
agree.
next weekend because next weekend
Everything's
is
good.
Halloween. In fact, our very shows themselves would normally be recording about the time people would be getting back from trick-or-treating, be on a sugar high and bouncing off the walls and or trying to wrangle their kids. So for your sake, we're not going to record anything on Sunday the 31st, but we will be back the following Tuesday to do Free Guy. And then I guess we've got a little bit of time before the end of the holiday season. We'll have to come up with some Christmas
Yeah, we should
slash
look at some
holiday
Christmas
movies.
stuff that we haven't
There
done before.
are a
Yeah.
few movies from last year that we never got around to covering. So
White Christmas.
we've covered White Christmas.
musical. Well, we can do it again. I watch it
I know,
every year.
most people
I don't
do,
know
but
what
there
your
are others that
problem
we
is.
wanted to cover and didn't.
Yeah, there are some Christmas movies that we have not covered.
That were
so-
actually on our lists and we just ran out of time to get to.
Die Hard. You're right.
No.
You're right. I'm sorry. Die
Nope,
Hard.
that wasn't one of them. We can cover Die Hard any time of the year. Yeah, but But that's going to do it for tonight's show. Be sure to check out randomchatter.com and youtube.com/randomchatter. Hit that subscribe and like button. And there's a notification button you can click there as well, where you will get notified the moment we go live or post any new videos. So be sure to check that out. And we will see you again after Halloween. If you're going out trick-or-treating, be safe. Only eat the good candy. And we will see you again soon.